You got the leeches, you've got the drilling into the brain, you've got
Right.
the different ways to, make people shorter, taller,
Oh my, all those poor souls, man, who had to go through
yeah.
these, the 99.9% of them that didn't work, that just ended in like atrophy. Jesus. Like I can do this. Worst case scenario for me, I have a throat that doesn't work. Like that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're, I don't want to get into the big pharma situation, but, we're still kind of going through that when it comes to figuring out what does and doesn't work with taking different pills or combination of pills or because everybody, again, their bodies are different. So, yeah, you have created this one pill that's supposed to help with this, but this one person has this one tiny thing or DNA makeup that makes them either highly allergic to that or whatever. And so then you got to rethink the whole thing with another way of going about it. And so, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Now, what do you think you learned the most from, conversing, interacting, and being taught from these athletes about, specific moves and different drills?
I think, honestly, it's been like just how individualized one should like approach their training, because we all come in with different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think there's sort of I think this is true in many aspects of life, that you're not as strong, or you're only as strong as your weakest link. I think I'm sort of the opposite mindset when it comes to training. Is I feel like it can almost be counterproductive to spend a ton of time trying to focus on these weak areas when, for example, with like leg locks. So I came in, didn't have any experience in leg locks. And I kind of looked at the landscape and saw, there's guys like Ryan Hall who spent thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of hours thinking about them and training them. And I kind of looked at that as, well, that could be a waste of time for me when I could never get that good, playing that game. So I kind of, approached jiu-jitsu with the mindset of, well, I'm going to focus on kind of, place all my effort in the path of kind of, truncating the pathway that gets to legs. So I'm just never there. I never give people my leg, just shut it off, and instead kind of further upstream from the path that leads to the leg lock game, positionally, where people kind of shoot in and tie up and get to your legs. That's where I'm stronger. And so I've sort of saw how people really rely on their strengths, to propel them to success, and not just offensively, but defensively. So I think, I don't know, I wasn't very succinct about saying that, but I guess, looking at natural strengths and kind of having a more positive mindset of I'm going to just be really, really, really good at this. And because I think a lot of the time, your best offense, is a good defense. And so just whatever you're good at, just go in all the way. And because that's where you're going to have the most potential. So it could be anything. You can be quick. Well, should you be this slow, methodical guard passer, or should you realize you have these natural attributes that are, kind of, place you in a certain percentage of people? Maybe you should go all in on that and become just a lightning quick guy who then nobody can deal with. And then maybe that will, kind of allow you to not even have to waste time learning these other things. I think just going all in and what you're good at is, I don't know, it's a little bit counterculture with, some stuff, but I feel kind of, at least right now, I could change my mind, but I'm kind of that mindset now.
No, that makes, if you know what you're good at, stick with that, and that makes sense. But there is, for the other side, there is something to allowing yourself to be a novice again, because, again, it goes back to you always need to be learning. And, you are great at this one thing, and you are, you're still learning how to be even better at that one thing, as opposed to there are the people that just kind of, not half-ass it, but they kind of put a lot of their eggs in different baskets instead of, it's like starting a bunch of projects and only finishing maybe half of them.
Yeah,
You're not going
exactly
to finish all of them all the time. So, finishing or getting really great at this one thing into where you think you might be one of the best in the world, and then switching over to, all right, what's the next aspect to where I can bring that into what I'm doing over here and being better even more at this.
Yeah. Like Khabib is a good example, I think, of this. Of his wrestling and his cage wrestling and his sort of like hip, like tie up game is so good that it's good enough to where he can avoid other aspects of the game by just like focusing on that. Like he can strike okay, but he probably didn't spend a ton of time, the same amount of time developing that skill set as he did grappling. And I mean, he was just unstoppable. Whereas would Khabib be the same Khabib if he had spent an even amount of time learning everything in terms of like jujitsu, like kickboxing, Muay Thai? I mean, maybe not. Maybe he would have been, but I mean, what he did worked pretty well. So.
Yeah, his track record is nothing really to argue about that as to whether how great he is or not.
But I mean, obviously there are examples to the contrary, and again, it goes back to you should individualize. Like always look at like what's working for the guy next to you might not work for you, and you don't have to force it all the time.
Yeah, I mean that goes back to the learning conversation as well. You're not going to pick it up the same way the other person is. So, or you may not want to focus on certain things, but somebody else would be like, "Oh, wow, that was really crazy. How do I, do more of that?"
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, you seem to be very mentally strong. Obviously, you want to continue to learn, and you learning judo, jiu-jitsu, going to Stanford for a medical degree, and then just constantly learning from these different athletes. What are some mental workouts that you practice on yourself that maybe other people could really benefit from as well?
Man, I think there's one that I started doing when I was a kid that I tell people about when they ask me, and I've just continued to do it, and I think it's been such a huge part of allowing me to, accomplish various goals that I've accomplished, is just when something happens bad to them, because that's going to happen every day. I mean, all the time in sort of varying degrees. But let's take something really bad, not super bad, like your whole family gets murdered, but let's say you get a knee, or let's say you get a knee. Like this happened to a guy that one of my training partners. Like he hurt his knee going with somebody, and he was really bummed out about it. I think there's sort of one mindset of getting through the adversity, right? But I think you can get greedier with it and say, okay, how can I turn this adversity into opportunity, and how can I use this to as almost like a checkpoint, pivot point in my life to change it in some way that I wouldn't otherwise have access to. So he hurt his knee, and so he could either just just muscle through, or he could say, well, you know what, I've never found gripping to be very interesting. I've never devoted any time to it because I don't like it. But at the same time, that could be a very important part of my game that I wouldn't have practiced otherwise, but I can now focus on really hard for a month. And so he's been doing that. He hurt his knee. Now he's practicing these gripping exchanges, getting really, really good. And I think because of the knee injury, he's going to be a much, much better grappler than he otherwise would have been if he hadn't hurt his knee. So all these things that happen, they suck, but they're just blips of change, and you can kind of decide is this going to be a good thing or is it going to be a bad thing? And most of the time you can turn these things into just huge opportunities to pivot towards success, little kind of pause meditation points to say, okay, what am I doing? What can I do instead? Because it's just easy to do the same thing every day, but I try to use those negative points in my life as I turn them into good things. So now when they happen, I almost reflexively think at first I'm oh shit, this sucks. Wait a minute, this is a good thing. This isn't so bad. And half an hour later I'm almost happy about it. And I think that's a really, really good way for anybody. It could be like with a breakup, like, oh man, I would have spent this time like going, like trying to impress this girl. Like maybe now I can go and man, I do not want to go study for this like math test. This is not interesting. Like I definitely would not have gone and like got this math book and like sat down and tried to force myself to learn something, but now I'm going to do that. I think that's really like the biggest kind of like a secret weapon to success.
No, I love that because
fortitude wise and like just positive change wise, like you can, it both is, like protective in terms of like shielding yourself from like pain, but also, like you can weaponize it and use it, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're turning the negative into a positive, and a lot of people, unfortunately, do have negative things. I mean, everybody has negative things happen in their lives, but they just get stuck in it. It's like it becomes their quicksand, and they can't seem to get out of it, or sometimes even want to get out of it. And so when it's happening to you, embracing it goes back to embracing the suck. Things are going to suck in life. If you have to, you've got to embrace it and say, okay, well, this is happening. What good can I take out of this, or what can I learn from this so that this does not happen again?
And honestly, this seems so cliche and like the first time, but it's literally the first time I've ever thought about it is hearing you say it. It's like, it's exactly like judo, like taking someone's momentum and using that against them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You can allow the bad thing to take over you, or you can take over it.
Exactly. Like someone's pushing. You can either you can muscle through, like push, or you can be like, oh, wait a minute. What if I pulled here and dropped under them? You know?
Right. I love that.
I have to get going to practice. But
sir,
it was absolute pleasure talking to you, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. If people want to find you online, learn more about you, interact with you, how can they do that?
My Instagram, Bad Boy Medicine, meant to be a stupid name. It's like ironic. It's like dumb. That's like, it's not like a serious, like Bad Boy Medicine. That's where I post all my stuff right now, like this kind of technique and, like live examples of doing judo and no-gi. So if they're interested in that, I encourage them to check it out.
There you go.
And yeah, what about, where's a good place for people to find you?
I'm at Brewsers Pod on Instagram, and I'm at official Rody John if you want to follow me on Instagram. I had Rody John, but it got hacked. I'm still working on getting it back, so fingers crossed that ever happens.
Hey, well, cool, man. Well, hey, it was a great conversation. I appreciate the time and interest, and yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you as well. Good luck with your practice, and I look forward to seeing what happens to you in the future.
Likewise, man. Likewise.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much to Dr. Austin Cook for being on the show. Again, such a fun conversation. And again, if you want to find out even more about how your human body works when it comes to jiu-jitsu and judo, make sure to go find him online so that you can find out even more. Speaking about finding out even more, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get even more information about our guests, fun facts, and what's happening with your favorite podcast, all about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. Speaking of which, make sure to also follow us on social media. It is Brewsers Pod. That is BREWSCRSPOD on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the Threads. If you want to send us an email directly, it is brewserspod@gmail.com. And if you want to follow me directly, it is Rody John. That is RODIEJON. Rody John is the name on the Twitter and on Untapped. And if you want to follow me on Instagram or the Threads, it is official Rody John. If you want to send me an email, it is rodyjohn@gmail.com. Till next time, make sure to enjoy life, drink local, and cheers.